Good morning, Megan, can you hear us? Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We still have about 1 minute before we begin here at the top of the hour. Megan, can you go ahead and try unmuting your microphone?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, but your volume's a bit soft. Can you check that your microphone is right beneath your chin or right beneath your lip?
Yeah, how about now?
Still faint.
Hold on.
So if you go into audio settings, thanks everybody for your patience. We're just going to get one of our presenters squared away and then we'll begin. Megan, could you do a check 2, 3, please?
Can you hear me now?
Your audio is pretty low. If you want to, real quick, go down to the toolbar and find your audio settings in Zoom.
Yep.
And just check that your input volume is up about 70 or 80%.
It's all the way at max.
And your microphone is right by your chin.
Yes, can you hear me better now?
It's a little bit better.
How about now?
Warmer?
I'll just...
I don't think I'm not sure your microphone is picking up. It sounds like it might be a built-in microphone on your computer. Is that?
I can call in via phone and just do it on an app if you can hear me better that way. Let me try that.
Didn't we have a headset for you though? Or am I?
Hold on. Can you hear me better this way?
No.
No?
Megan, could you confirm if you're using a headset or your built-in microphone on your computer?
I used a built-in last time and it wasn't an issue. I can try to call in via my Zoom app on my cell phone if that would be better.
If you could call in using the dial-in number, I think that would be our best bet so that we can go ahead and begin.
Can you provide the dial number in a chat?
Yes, I will pop that into the chat pod real quick. Thank you. Good morning. Thank you everyone again so much for joining us today. We are getting one of our presenters squared away. We'll begin in just 1 minute. If you would like to take the time in the interim, we're going to pop the event page link to the chat pod. And if you scroll down to the bottom of that page, you'll be able to download the slides that we'll be working through today in case you would like to take some notes as we go through. Also note, you'll be able to ask questions of our presenters utilizing the chat pod as we go through today's event. If you'd like to say hello while we get set up these last minute or two, we'd love to hear where you're joining us from today and anything in particular that you're looking forward to diving into. Megan, good morning. Is that you on the line?
Good morning. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yes, ma'am. That sounds great. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, beautiful. So we'll go ahead and kick things off for today. Again, good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Your Money, Your Clearance. We're excited to have two presenters whom you'll meet here momentarily to speak with us on this topic. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we begin. As I just mentioned a moment ago, you can download the webinar slides on our event page. We'll also be providing information regarding the continuing education opportunities that are available for today's session at the very end of our webinar today. So do stay tuned till the end if you are interested in those opportunities. The Military Families Learning Network is passionate about connecting military family service providers and cooperative extension professionals to research and to each other through engaging online learning opportunities. We invite you to learn more about the MFLN on our Military Families Learning Network homepage. At this time, it's my pleasure to turn things over to my colleague, Selena Garrison. She's going to be introducing our presenters today as well as moderating today's session. Selena?
Thanks, Coral. Good morning, everyone. Today we're joined by Megan Clapp and Bonnie Boltz. Megan currently serves as the Trusted Workforce Liaison for Vetting Risk Operations Center. She ensures key communication and coordination to guarantee reportable adverse information found through the continuous evaluation and continuous vetting program. She makes sure that it's executed with a risk management approach and mitigated with the intention of possessing a trusted workforce. Bonnie Boltz is a Personnel Security Specialist Branch Chief at the Department of Defense Consolidated Adjudications Facility, where she leads a branch of adjudicators responsible for determining security clearance eligibility of DoD personnel occupying sensitive positions or requiring access to classified material. As a seasoned professional with more than 22 years of personnel security experience, Bonnie has a thorough knowledge of government security clearance processes and is an expert at analyzing all available, reliable information about a person to reach an eligibility determination that is clearly consistent with the interests of the United States. Thank you for joining us today. It's now my pleasure to turn things over to Ms. Clapp.
Thank you so much, and I'm thrilled to be here. So the Vetting Risk Operations is a growing department that continues to enroll more cleared individuals into the DoD's continuous vetting program. The Vetting Risk Operations currently oversees continuous vetting across the entire Department of Defense, as well as personnel security with a national industrial security program, within the National Industrial Security Program. The Vetting Risk Operations acts as the central nervous system for the security clearance process, where we leverage automated records checks to assist in the ongoing review of an individual's background, which ultimately contributes to obtaining a trusted workforce. So what is continuous vetting and what does it mean? Continuous vetting means the ongoing and real-time review of an individual's background to determine whether an individual continues to uphold the requirements for cleared personnel, ensuring the DoD has a trusted workforce. This is ultimately done through continuous evaluation, which is the vetting process to review an individual's background to determine whether they are eligible to access classified information or hold a sensitive position at any time during eligibility. CE specifically here leverages automated records checks against the review of business rules, which are established by reporting thresholds upheld by the SEAD 4 adjudicative guidelines, the federal investigative standards, and the expandable focused investigation criteria to assist in the individual's ongoing continued eligibility to access classified information. CE was put into place by Executive Order 13467, but the CE program or continuous vetting program showed exponential growth after the Washington Navy Yard shooting. From this incident, we learned that we needed to get ahead of risk to prevent instead of reacting. The process of CE and continuous vetting allows us to prevent and mitigate potential indicators of insider threat and eliminate risk when necessary. Currently cleared individuals who have eligibility that supports access to classified information and affiliation can be enrolled into the DoD's continuous vetting program. Please be aware that these individuals have to have signed a 2010 version of the SF-86 or a later date, which is the 2017 version of the SF-86. As well, it's important to note that all individuals enrolled, they do not have to be in access to access classified information. All they have to do is have eligibility to support access to classified information. So that's your top secret, secret, and SCI population. So overall, we really want to drive home the fact that currently CE and continuous vetting and our service is not here to take away clearances. Less than 0.01% of continuous vetting reports end up in revoking an individual's clearance. Our whole goal here at the Vetting Risk Operations is to get ahead of risk and mitigate issues before they become a problem. And I don't believe my slide control is working. Thank you. So there are so many benefits to our continuous vetting program here in-house. We are already seeing the benefits as we move forward to a Trusted Workforce 2.0 compliant program. And one of ours is learning potential security risk and insider threat indicators earlier on. Two is that traditional periodic reinvestigations will be a thing of the past, and we will be moving forward to a more modernized process to reviewing an individual's background that detects reportable information in real time. And the last thing is the overall personal vetting process and clearance process will be more efficient. And overall, the time to either renew a clearance or upgrade a clearance will improve. So you'll see a bit of a graph on the side, and this is my favorite part here, and I find it quite interesting. Currently, we have 3.3 million individuals enrolled into the DoD's continuous vetting program. We are very, very close into having the full cleared population enrolled into the continuous vetting program. Our entire cleared population is 3.6 million individuals. After that, our biggest security clearance population is going to be secret clearance, followed by SCI, as well as on the right-hand side, you can see a breakdown per component. The Army has the most, followed by the industry, then Air Force. And underneath, this is my favorite part, and I think it's so interesting that we here at the Vetting Risk Operations are detecting information faster than a PR. So we are finding information approximately 3 years into somebody who just had their clearance renewed for a secret eligibility, and about the same, about 3 months for a top secret. So it's interesting that the 3-year benchmark of somebody renewing their clearance is when we find out reportable adverse information. And we are currently finding this out faster than a PR would be due. So the next PR would be due 7 months if we waited for a PR instead of using continuous vetting capabilities. Next slide. So continuous vetting enrollment. All cleared individuals who have an active affiliation with the DoD and who have signed a 2010 version of the SF-86 or later and have eligibility to support access to classified information are eligible to be enrolled into the DoD's continuous vetting program. It's important to note that all individuals with those three requirements will be enrolled into the DoD's continuous vetting /CE program by the end of FY21, which is right around the corner. We here have a display of a couple enrollment methods that you can see. The two enrollment methods that you see displayed in DIS are going to be other and deferment of reinvestigation. It displays as deferred investigation in DIS. So what does it mean? So deferred investigation means the individual was enrolled after a re-investigation request using a risk management-based approach. The SF-86 was analyzed using deferment protocol for enrollment into the continuous vetting program instead of submission to DCSA Investigative Services for traditional PR. Other is the individual was enrolled as part of the overall effort to enroll eligible civilian, military, industry personnel with a national security clearance into the DoD CE program. It's important to note that these two enrollment methods you see displayed in DIS are valid. The only thing changes is when to submit a new PR. Eventually PRs will be a thing of the past and they will be going away, but until then you still follow your standard procedures, and I can go into further detail about that a little bit later on during our question and answers if anybody has questions regarding that topic. So our entire cleared population of 3.6 million will be enrolled into the DoD's continuous evaluation / continuous vetting program at the end of September. All enrollment methods are valid. You will see other and deferment of investigation displayed in DIS, as well as we also enroll individuals via post-adjudication. This means after an individual receives their periodic reinvestigation, if they went through that traditional route due to their answers on the SF-86, they would be enrolled into the DoD's continuous vetting program after the CAF made a favorable adjudication on that individual's investigation. This post-adjudication also displays as other in the Defense Information System for Security, so DIS. Next slide. So this is what I really want to focus on with our group on the phone. Due to your roles in helping mitigate adverse information found through the continuous vetting program. So continuous vetting, how does it work? So CE database monitoring starts as soon as the individual is enrolled into the DoD's continuous vetting program. We do automated records checks across various categories. Credit reports, court records, jail bookings, law enforcement, bankruptcy filings, and more. What I want to drive home here is our financial piece of this. So you're getting two data categories for financial information. One, you're getting suspicious financial activity. This is reported through our data source, FinCEN, which is done through banks. And then the credit report check is done through our 3 credit bureaus on a rotational basis. And the information you would receive such as this are tax liens and judgments, as well as bankruptcy filings and discharges, as well as you would see aggregated debt. Aggregated debt is you're going to see anything from a certain of numbers past due that is going to be reportable, as well as anything in collections or repossessions. It has to meet a certain amount of threshold, of course, but all that information is reportable due to the federal investigative standards, the expandable focused investigation criteria, and then SEAD4 are adjudicative guidelines. So once someone is enrolled, they start churning against those automated records checks. And let's say an alert is generated. An alert is generated in the system if our system thinks that it meets our CE business rules or CV business rules. Once again, those are established by SEAD4, adjudicative guidelines, the federal investigative standards, as well as the expandable focused investigation criteria. And once an alert is generated, it goes to our analyst here at the Vetting Risk Operations to work. Once a continuous vetting analyst receives an alert, they are able to do three things. They're able to invalidate, archive, and validate an alert. If an alert is validated, it is created into a report. It's important to note all alerts that are validated or are generated into a report meet reportable thresholds. They pass identity resolution, and what that means is it is our subject on file. And then the last thing is the derogatory information produced in the continuous vetting report was not previously known, reported, or adjudicated. And that's that verified by DCSA piece. Once that alert is validated and written up to an analytical report of that raw data that we received in that alert, it gets distributed to our SMOs, and that's what I want to focus on here, our part for the DoD security components, because that's what you guys are dealing with. So those reports are generated, and they are distributed to the SMO with an acknowledgement of receipt. The initial RFA distributed by the Vetting Risk Operations Center is distributed out and goes out for 30 days to the SMO. From there, the Vetting Risk Operations is asking three things for that SMO and that individual to do. Is one, sign the acknowledgement of receipt, stating that they understand that this is the adverse information and they viewed the information in the report for the SMO. And the next thing that we require or asked to do is that the adverse information contained in the report is put on the individual's sub-record via DIS incident report. And the last thing we do is that the SMO and subjects start providing supporting and mitigating information for the DoD CAF. So for our financial piece, I want to cover that for you all today because that's what we are primarily focusing on, is that for any financial information found, this is the information that's important for you to provide or help mitigate the adverse information. One, that individual has received or is receiving financial counseling for the problem from a legitimate and credible source. This can be done through like an EAP verification, whether that's a handwritten note or proof of registration. Another one is that the individual indicated and is adhering to a good faith effort to repay overdue creditors and otherwise resolve debts. The last thing is that the individual is a reasonable basis to dispute the legitimacy of past due debt, which is caused by the problem and provides documented proof of basis, or let's say identity theft is the issue, that you provide a statement from your bank stating, there was stolen identity issue on the individual, whatever it may be. Commonly requested documents for financial considerations are proof of payments, canceled checks, proof of payment arrangements, as well as current statements reflecting a systematic effort to reduce delinquent debts, as well as copies of bankruptcies, but please include the scheduling of those bankruptcies, as well as the complete credit reports. Preferably a 3 credit bureau is preferred, as well as a subject statement of reason. Proof of bettering your debts is always great, but we really want to see, and the CAF wants to see, why did we get there in the first place? And is there something more we have to worry about? Is this a one-time issue? Is this a repeated pattern of behavior? So please provide that information, and that's what VROC is asking you to do when we first distribute that RFA to you via DIS. We're asking the SMO to sign the acknowledgement of receipt, provide an incident report via DIS due to the fact that information is reportable by the Federal Investigative Standards, SEAD 4, and EFI, the Expandable Focused Investigation Criteria, and then, provide that supporting and mitigating documented information. So by the time it gets to the DoD CAF, they hopefully can make a favorable adjudication due to the information provided, or at least make an adjudication determination. After that 30 days, the case is typically transferred to the DoD CAF for action. If it is not, you can file extension requests in the Defense Information System for Security up to 120 days that adverse information can be with your SMO prior to transferring to the CAF. Once the CAF receives the continuous vetting report as well as the DIS case, they'll be able to make an adjudication determination on the information provided. If not, they will either go out for an RSI if the information, states that, they can't go direct and it needs investigative services done, or most likely, especially with financials, they reach out via RFA again in DIS, and business continues as normal here at the Vetting Risk Operations. Eventually, the information is provided to the CAF and they make an adjudication determination and business continues as normal. We keep running automated records checks on those individuals enrolled into the continuous vetting program. And as alerts come up for us to work, we work them in real time and provide that information out to the SMO if the information is a valid alert. Next slide. So currently, we are transitioning to be a Trusted Workforce 2.0 compliant program and have all our individuals with DoD affiliation as well as individuals affiliated with industry into a continuous vetting and a Trusted Workforce 2.0 compliant program. We are moving forward to a holistic approach to continuous vetting in reviewing an individual's background to ensure we are letting the right people in agencies and departments, and then also willing to accept the risk associated with each individual. Continuous vetting compliant is the evolution of continuous evaluation concept. CE data sources originally intended to supplement periodic reinvestigations have become the fundamental basis for the continuous vetting capabilities. We started with continuous evaluation, which means the vetting process to review an individual's background who is determined eligible for classified information and uphold a position to access classified information. So our secret, top secret, and SCI population. We leverage CE, which is done through the automated records checks against business rules, to assist in the ongoing assessment of an individual's continued eligibility. So continuous vetting, what does that mean? We're moving forward to continuous vetting right now, which is the ongoing and real-time review of an individual's background to determine whether that individual upholds the requirements for cleared personnel to make sure the DoD has a trusted workforce. A trusted workforce continuous vetting program includes required automated records checks, currently required by CE, as well as Trusted Workforce 2.0 includes agency-specific data checks as well. There are so many benefits to CE as we're moving forward to a trusted workforce. We are learning about indicators early on, which is the huge part we are getting through automated records checks. And just a friendly reminder, we will be a continuous, all individuals will be Trusted Workforce 1.25 compliant by the end of FY21, which is approaching this September. So you will see all individuals who meet those qualifications enrolled into the DoD's continuous evaluation / continuous vetting program. Next slide. So this is kind of what I touched base on. So what is a trusted workforce? What is Trusted Workforce 1.25 and what is 1.5? So Trusted Workforce 1.5 requires the use of automated records checks against 3 categories: terrorism, criminal activity, and eligibility. And those sources are run on a daily basis. Most of our DoD program here that we have enrolled into the continuous vetting program are actually closer to a 1.5 compliant program. And what is Trusted Workforce 1.5 outlined by policy? It requires the use of automated records checks against 7 different categories. The categories are terrorism, foreign travel, suspicious financial activity, criminal activity, credit, public records checks, and eligibility. So just a reminder, everybody will be 1.25 compliant by the end of FY21, and then has to be 1.5 compliant at the end of FY22. So this is why you're probably seeing a large uptick in continuous evaluation enrollment displayed in the Defense Information System for Security. Next slide. So we kind of touched base on this regarding what our program looks like now, what is the future of personnel security. So you can really see everything for the Trusted Workforce 2.0 initiative overhaul can be broken down into 5 main steps. One is the establishment of trust, and that's that initial vetting process handled at VROC, and the individual is enrolled into the continuous evaluation or continuous vetting program. From there, they're going to be enrolled into continuous vetting, which includes those automated records checks. And this will replace PRs. PRs will be a thing of the past soon for situational awareness, and people will be just enrolled into CE. Then we will run into the circumstances of upgrading vetting. This will be a more seamless process to the security clearance levels as needed. They would receive maybe additional automated records checks in real time to get that clearance upgraded from a secret to a top secret clearance, or like a top secret to an SCI clearance. Then we have the reestablishing of trust or reciprocity. This reestablishment of a clearance is after a lapse, usually known as a break of access, so 2 years more. You know, maybe we just turn them back on in continuous vetting checks, and we can reestablish that trust as if nothing comes up and is a valid alert. If there is a valid alert on that individual, we would address it before them coming back into access. And the last thing is the transfer of trust, or, you know, reciprocity, as just stated. And this is the transferring of individuals to other government agencies. Due to the fact that everyone has to have the same continuous vetting compliance checks on their individuals if they have a continuous vetting compliant program, this will make the transfer of between government agencies much smoother due to the fact that they all have to receive the same or very similar automated records checks. So overall, the Trusted Workforce 2.0 initiative is the overall overhaul to improve the security clearance process and to modernize it. It'll resolve issues such as timeliness when offering a risk-based approach to our continuous vetting automated records checks. So, you know, eventually we will move to continuous vetting automated records checks being done for based on position and information such as that. We are revamping the vetting process here and within DCSA to focus on mission needs and outlining these 5 security-based scenarios. Next slide. And this is in case you have any questions or inquiries. I highly recommend you contact the Ask VROC box here at the Vetting Risk Operations, and they will assist you with anything you might need. I understand that these might be more relating to continuous vetting, and they will be directed to our continuous vetting liaison for the DoD. And now, I know if we have time, I would love to open the floor up to questions, and I believe there has been a decent amount coming in through the chat. If we'd like to open the floor, and our staff here would serve as the facilitators for questions, and I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Hey, Megan, thank you so much for sharing that wonderful information. So we have had a few questions come into the chat. The first one was early on, and they were asking if Congress is included in the process.
So our the PAC PMO is the driving force between us and becoming Trusted Workforce 2.0 compliant, as well as OUSDI from a policy standpoint. That's who's making all these policies, and DCSA is, you know, currently has jurisdiction over the DoD. So yes, Congress is involved, but not immediately involved in DCSA's process. They're in the macro picture of becoming continuous vetting and Trusted Workforce compliant.
Thank you. We had another attendee who said they had a few members recently who received notification from CAF, and the notification they received no longer tells them to meet with the financial counselor, and it's
Um,
delaying the responses. And do you know if that's going to be corrected and direct them to come see the counselors again?
So this is usually on the jurisdiction of the Security Management Office. So it all depends on your organization, if you're, with the Army, if you're with the Air Force, and how they do their processes and procedures internally. Because that initial step is through contact with that SMO, organizing that EAP setup to get that individual, assistance. So it's really on the jurisdiction of the component and what they are authorizing their command to do, specifically that specific SMO. Like I said, we do definitely promote that, and it's written all over our resource guides, financial counseling. And I know most of our components at the higher macro level support that too. As for SMOs, I cannot speak on their behalf, but I will let you know, the larger macro level of our DoD security components are really promoting the use of EAPs and financial counseling when it comes into terms of aggregated debt, bankruptcies, things like that.
Thank you. And we had another question about, will this improve the process with adjudication of clearance with movement between military and civilian employment?
Yes. So it will speed up adjudications, and already has a bit due to the fact that they're getting information and risk is getting known in real time, which is also a huge plus of the automated records checks. And then when moving from transfer of trust, I like to call it, it will definitely speed up the process due to the fact PRs are not officially gone away, but once we are just down to continuous vetting and there's no such thing as PRs, I definitely think you will see a faster and smoother transition between jobs, not only with just DoD scenarios between military and civilian, but you're also going to start to see it within the federal workforce too. So between, let's say, somebody works for the Department of State and they want to get a job with the Air Force as a civilian.
Thank you. And then another attendee had a question. When someone is trying to come on active duty and has not addressed their debt, will they be able to come on active duty?
So yes, the thing with active debt is the fact that we're running credit reports on a periodic basis due to the policy. So yes, debt, as long as there's nothing that pops up on that individual in time, yes, they will still, because they still have eligibility, and that's what matters. As for debt, it will be addressed once we run those automated records checks, specifically the credit bureau with aggregated debt, and it'll need to be addressed then. But that does not stop anybody from going into active duty. It's all about that eligibility. As long as that person has that eligibility intact, they are good to go.
Thank you. And then Shannon is asking, when referring to EAP, are you speaking of the Employee Assistance Program?
Yes, and I know that there's an array of names, also financial counseling too. Yes, EAPs, yes, Employee Assistance Programs. But yeah, I know a lot of the components are referring to EAPs, but also financial counseling, depending on the component and how large they are.
Thank you. So I'm wondering if you have any information on some of the most common financial issues that cause security alerts?
Yeah, so what we're doing here, and I can go into further detail, so just let me know, but the main things we see with here at the Vetting Risk Operations, it's all dependent on automated records checks here internally right now. So you're going to get your suspicious financial activity, which can come through an array of hubs, but that information will never go to the subject directly initially. That will go directly to the CAF due to the severity of the alert. With the most common ones you will see out in the field to be actioned are going to be bankruptcies. This includes the initial filing of bankruptcies, as well as a status change in a bankruptcy. You're also going to see aggregated debt. So aggregated debt, what I mean by aggregated debt, I don't mean your credit card that you're paying every month. I mean your aggregated debt that you're not paying. You're going to see a few things of aggregated debt. You're going to see it in different statuses. You're going to see it out of a X amount of days past due. You're also going to see things in collections and repossessions. But all of this debt is not being paid, and that's why it has to meet a certain amount of threshold. That a threshold is established by the federal investigative standards and the expandable focused investigation criteria. But technically, the way your SF-86 is written, any unpaid debt is reportable, and we want to know about it in case you ever get addressed before somebody gets a report on CE. Then the next thing we're going to see is tax liens and judgments on individuals, but those are definitely the most common, is bankruptcies, initial filing, and status changes, aggregated debt that meets a certain amount of threshold, but technically, remember, all of it is reportable if it's unpaid debt and not getting paid. And then the last thing you're going to see is that tax liens and judgments. Does that answer the question? Hopefully.
Yeah.
If you have additional questions, please just reach out in the chat on any of the information I just said.
And then someone was wanting to know if yellow ribbon counselors are included as a resource for active duty. So those are through the AFCPE?
I think they're referred to, but like I said, I can't comment on, which component is promoting each one at the moment. But I know overall these programs are promoted to, people who get hits regarding continuous vetting, and that is done through the SMO. And then it's mentioned also in the they do their RFI that goes out. But yeah.
Thank you. And then if someone provides all the necessary paperwork and a plan, but does not follow through with the payment plan, how long will they be given before the clearance is pulled? So thinking about charge off versus in collections account specifically, and then also thinking about a debt settlement plan. Is that okay? And does that clear everything?
So I'll let the CAF is going to do a presentation after me. So I definitely want them to state that. Also, yes, I do think that's sufficient paperwork. Like I said, I always would include a statement of reason too with that. I think it's just a good thing to provide always. But I do think that is great supporting documentation. Is a clearance going to be pulled? Most likely not. They're going to give the subject a chance to answer back. If the subject gets a conditional, which means if you can't do this, then X, Y, and Z is going to happen, then maybe that would be a circumstance. But that also has to include a pattern of behavior when it comes to debt. So if you have a specific scenario, please, reach out to the event holders, and I'm happy to help you and assist you with an open case if this is the scenario going on. But yes, I think that is sufficient paperwork to provide. We're not going to directly, we would only find out this information through another credit report check, which would only be done through another PR or another continuous vetting alert check here done at the vetting risk operations. So would they get their clearance taken away right away? Probably not, unless there was a conditional going on about it. But always, once a subject says they're going to do something, please, promote you really got to try to stick with it. Because it is concerning when you see a repeated pattern of behavior when it comes to financial information.
Thank you. Thank you so much for answering all those, Megan. So we will go ahead to our next presenter, and I'd like to welcome Ms. Bonnie Bolts.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here as well. So today, let me do this. I can't do the slides for some reason. Oh, there we go. So today we're going to talk about a little bit of what the DoD CAF is all about, the adjudicative process, what exactly is the Personnel Security Program, whole person concept, national security guidelines, issuing disqualifiers versus mitigations, submitting your response, providing you a little bit of customer support contact information, and then ending with questions. You're going to hear a lot of reiteration of what Megan said, so reiteration is good. It helps retain information. So the DoD CAF is the sole authority to determine security clearance eligibility of non-intelligent agency DoD personnel occupying sensitive positions and or requiring access to classified material, including SCI. So our customer base includes all military service members, military applicants, civilian employees, and consultants affiliated with the DoD, to include the staff of the U.S. Senate and House of Representatives, the Congressional Budget Office, the U.S. Capitol Police, selected judicial staff, DoD personnel at the White House, and contractor personnel under the National Industrial Security Program. So our mission, along with what you see on the screen, is to deliver informed and timely adjudicative decisions supporting a trusted workforce to enable operational readiness and risk management. Some of our focus areas this year includes maintaining a healthy inventory and executing national security eligibility, favorable civilian suitability, contractor fitness, and DoD credentialing decisions. We want to improve quality and consistency of our decisions and business processes through the workforce development and training. Strengthen relationships with the security personnel partners, improve customer experience and communications, and expand mission space to deliver enhanced services to customers. Some of the transformation areas that we've done so far is we're standardizing the reciprocity program within DCSA to improve program performance. We've evolved the CAF knowledge management platform. We've leveraged the automated records checks to resume use of conditional grants for avoidable due process proceedings. And we've enhanced the quality assessments and training through machine learning capabilities, which is great during our COVID. So as you see, you'll see the hierarchy of what the CAF is structured at right now. You know, the world is always evolving. So since the addition of this slide, we actually have another division that's being formed and in play next month. So we have our assistant director, Miss Mariana Martineau. We call her M3. A deputy assistant director she'll have. We have our OGC, our executive officer, and our front office staff. And within the CAF, we have 7 divisions, and we are going to set up an 8th division that will host all of our, what we call our tech leads, our SMEs. Those are the ones that are reviewing all the investigations that come in that have derogatory information. So now let's talk about our adjudicative process. So just what is the objective of the Personnel Security Program? Simply, the objective is to make a reasonable determination that individuals granted access to classified information or those assigned to sensitive positions are and will remain loyal, trustworthy, and reliable. And it starts with the position designation. So each position in the federal service must be evaluated for a position sensitivity designation with the responsibilities and assignments of the position as they relate to the impact on national security. So such responsibilities and assignments include special sensitive, which requires a Tier 5 and Tier 5R, critical sensitive, non-critical sensitive, non-sensitive. So as I previously stated, both the sensitive and the critical sensitive positions require a T5 and T5R. Non-critical sensitive positions require a T3 and a Tier 3R. And non-sensitive positions are subject to the appropriate suitability investigation, which is T1, T2, or T4. So once the investigation is completed, The investigation is forward for personnel security adjudication where the decision whether to deny or revoke a clearance or eligibility to perform sensitive duties is made based on the investigative evidence. But the program doesn't stop once eligibility is granted. Each person granted eligibility remains subject to the personnel security program. And as Megan said, security clearance holders are continuously vetted using CE. And the CE process is just like it sounds. It's an ongoing assessment of clearance holders. So instead of the past where we've investigated them once every 5 years for top secret, 10 years for secret, and 15 years for those with confidential clearances, the investigations are triggered by adverse information flagged under CE. It's important to note, though, that this doesn't mean that the obligation to report potential security violations goes away. While continuous vetting ensures self-reporting isn't the only way the government finds out adverse information, it does not eliminate the personal responsibility of the individual security clearance holder. The sooner they report, the better for them, and to obtain information that they'll need to mitigate. So the adjudicative process, it's an examination of a sufficient period and a careful weighing of a number of variables of an individual's life to make an affirmative determination that the individual is an acceptable security risk. This is known as the whole person concept. So all available reliable information about the person, past and present, favorable and unfavorable, are considered in reaching a national security eligibility determination. Additionally, in evaluating the relevance of an individual's conduct, we consider these 9 factors that you see on this face head. The nature, extent, and seriousness of the conduct. The circumstances surrounding the conduct to include knowledgeable participation, the frequency and the recency of the conduct, the individual's age and maturity at the time of the conduct, the extent to which participation is voluntary, the presence or absence of rehab and other pertinent behavioral changes, the motivation for the conduct, the potential for pressure, coercion, exploitation, or duress, and the likelihood of continuance or reoccurrence. So these are the guidelines that we use. It's in the 5200, and the ultimate decision of whether to grant or continue national security eligibility is clearly consistent with the interest of national security must be an overall common sense judgment based on these guidelines. This ensures that no biases are included when we adjudicate. And so each of them is to be evaluated in the context of the whole person. So along with the previous slide that we looked at, along with these factors, we use these guidelines. The top 5 guidelines, and at the number 2 is what you're here for today, is the financial considerations. So, but the top 5 is criminal, financial, foreign influence, personal conduct, and drug involvement and substance misuse. And when I talk about personal conduct, it's the failure to report or falsification of a security questionnaire. So each guideline has specific conditions that could raise a security concern and conditions that can mitigate the security concerns. So the disqualifiers include pattern of poor judgment or adverse behavior, non-willingness to correct the behavior, and failure to report. Some mitigating factors include time, recency, what were the actions that they took for resolution, did they voluntarily disclose the information, and is there evidence that the issue is under control or that it's no longer present. So this slide is a duplicate of the previous slide. However, I'm going to take this opportunity because we're here today for the financial considerations guideline. And Megan mentioned a few of the mitigating factors, but let me just tell you what can be that or can raise a security concern and what may be disqualifying under the financial guideline. Those include the inability to satisfy debts. They don't have the money and they are unable to pay their debts. Then there's the unwillingness to satisfy the debts regardless if they have the ability to do so. They have a history of not meeting financial obligations. Deceptive or illegal financial practices. They're consistently spending beyond one's means, or they have frivolous or irresponsible spending. Failure to pay, to file, or fraudulently filing annual federal, state, or local income tax returns. Unexplained affluence, which is shown by inconsistency with known legal sources of income. They make this amount of money, but they have like 3 mansions. You know, where's this money coming from? They're borrowing money or engaging in significant financial transactions to fund gambling or pay gambling debts, and then concealing gambling losses, family conflict, or other problems caused by gambling. So how can those be mitigated? These are the mitigating factors that we use to weigh the information provided against the disqualifying information. The behavior happened so long ago, was so infrequent, or occurred under such circumstances that it's unlikely to recur. The condition that resulted in the financial problem were largely beyond the person's control, and the individual acted responsibly under the circumstances. We get some information, some responses where it's clearly shown that the condition that resulted in it wasn't their fault. It was beyond their control. But the piece that's missing is, what have they done responsibly to resolve their issues? The individual has received or is receiving financial counseling for a problem from a legitimate and credible source, and there are clear indications that the problem is being resolved. I stress the word "and" because both parts have to play in using that mitigator. The individual initiated and is adhering to a good faith effort to repay overdue creditors or otherwise resolve debts. The important thing to mention here, they don't have to pay off their debts because it'd be kind of hard to do that within the 60-day time frame. But they have to show that they've made a good faith effort. They've contacted the creditor. They've set up payment plans. The amount of money they're paying is reasonable with their debt to income ratio and so forth. The individual has a reasonable basis to dispute the legitimacy of the past due debt, and they provide documented proof to substantiate the basis of the dispute, or they provide evidence of actions to resolve the issue. In regards to the affluence, if the affluence resulted from a legal source of income, maybe they received the income from from a will. And lastly, the individual made arrangements with the appropriate tax authority to file or pay the amount owed and is in compliance with those arrangements. So when the CAF sends a statement of reasons, and just to be clear what the statement of reasons is, a statement of reasons is, here's the disqualifying information of why we cannot grant your eligibility. And it allows the individual due process to respond and provide information to mitigate the disqualifying information. So anything that they can provide that is documented proof to mitigate is beneficial. So proof of recent payments, documentation from creditors such as a current payment history, copies of payment receipts, or bank account statements that reflect transactions. If a financial consolidation agreement has been reached, it's important to provide official documentation that reflects that the payments are being made per the agreement. If delinquent debts are a result of conditions beyond the person's control, provide a brief and relative narrative, but also remember to address how the individual acted responsibly under the circumstances. And ensure that the documentation provided addresses the specific debt cited in the SOR, and that the document provided is clear as to which debt it is for. So here is contact information for specific call centers within the DCSA. You can download those and have those available to you. You can also follow us on social media, and here's the DCSA social media for Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And this concludes my presentation, and I am happy to answer any questions that you have. Let me go into the chat box so I can find it.
Hi, Bonnie. Thank you. So we
You're
had
welcome.
a few questions come in. The most recent one was, what do you consider a long time ago? Is that years or months?
Long time. Usually it's within a year. When we talk about recency, we look within a year. However, there's no concrete, it's case by case. And a lot of the adjudicators hate my answer when I say that it's case by case. So let's just say, in comparing one individual to another. So you have an individual who, the market was down, they're unable to pay their house payment, they try to do a short sale, and it's like $150,000 in debt, versus somebody who has $150,000 in debt, and it's like 100 here, 200 here, and it's a whole bunch of debts. Well, the one with the 150,000 mortgage that they can't pay, they couldn't try to sell their house, would be adjudicated favorably because they've acted responsibly. Depending on compared to the other individual, where they've really done nothing, they've clearly showed either an inability or an unwillingness to pay. Oh, here's a chat. I hope that answered the question.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then this one is related to both what you and Megan were talking about, but what if the service members reported the financial issue to the command before there is an alert?
So if that occurred, it would have to be, the SMO would need to provide a full detailed account. So of the incident in DIS. So if that happened, we here at the Vetting Risk Operations would archive the alert. So it wouldn't be pushed forward to you in a report because the information was previously known. And it's already been adjudicated, or it is currently in an open case ready to be adjudicated. So if the information was already noted, I will tell you things get a little stickier when, it's aggregated debt in a bunch of accounts.
Yes.
You need to really provide that full list of accounts and total amounts in your incident report. But yep, if it's already previously, reported in a DIS incident report, then we're not going to push it forward to the SMO for action.
Thank you. There was another question related to timeline. Will there be a change in timeline where clearance is suspended if leaving a job requiring a clearance and then at a later date applies for a job requiring a clearance? And they gave the example of a military member retiring from the military 2 years later, so applies for a job with a governmental agency that requires a current clearance.
So there's a stickler on 2-year breaks. So initially, if there's a 2-year break between service, they would have to redo the investigative process. In other words, be re-adjudicated. I'm not sure how CV works with that, so I'll give that to Megan to answer. Her expertise.
Yeah. So right now it works the same way, but I'm telling in the near future that this process and procedure will change. We are currently waiting for our next iteration of policy, specifically the implementation guidance, to come out once we get past FY 21. The hope is it'll be a more modernized process, most likely be handled by the vetting risk operations with upgrading clearance and doing some in-house automated records checks like immediately in real time and getting those answers back. So it will definitely be different, but we are currently waiting on policy. As soon as the policy comes out, I am sure that, we will provide an update to the workforce, which includes our DoD security components, as well as our industry contractors.
There's a question that I see that I'd like to answer. So I'm going to ask, if someone provides all the necessary paperwork and a plan but does not follow through with the payment plan, how long will they be given before the clearance is pulled? So it's important to note that once the statement of reasons is forwarded to the individual, as Megan said, they have to acknowledge receipt that they've received the SOR. It is on that date that the clock starts ticking, per se. So they have from that date 60 days to provide us what we call a rebuttal or a response to that statement of reasons. If or when they provide a response, or even if they don't provide a response, let's say they don't provide a response, then we will update revocation or denial for failure to respond. And I'm gonna tell you, we're kind of backlogged, so I would say probably 6 months right now in reviewing and getting a decision made on responses. So you're looking at probably 90 days for the eligibility will go, but they'll get notified through their SMO that it was revoked or denied and why. I hope that helps answer that question. So the importance is of when the AOR is received, and they have 10 days to provide that to us, which is the acknowledgement of receipt. Sometimes the SOR is vague as to what the debt actually is, and is hard to determine from the consumer credit reports and could not be showing in the 7-year history. What should we do with those cases? Okay, so we actually state exactly what it states as it shows in the credit report. So the individual can obtain his own credit report and go through it. That's all we have to know what the accounts are. We would hope that the individual knows what the debt is and can provide us information to help resolve it. But I agree, it's hard to determine sometimes, what it is. But if you look at, it'll have an original creditor, and it'll have, because, credit accounts are sold and sold and sold. So you just have to look at those names and look at account numbers. What if an individual who has fallen behind in student loan debt due to divorce and other family challenges, and these student debts are federal debt collection? I'm not sure, what the question is, but again, remember, it's not just that they have bad debt. What were the circumstances that resulted in that? And if they had a divorce, that's beyond their control. They were unable to find a job after they got out of college. Hello, my daughter's a teacher and has to pay her debts. But what are they doing? Are they paying something towards it? Are they in contact with the college? That's the main important part that we are looking for. Where is the good faith effort? Not, I've paid my debt. We are not credit collectors. What if a person has several delinquent accounts and can't set up multiple payment plans simultaneously but can snowball the debts? Is this an acceptable response? Do they need to reach out to all credit? Okay, maybe it's my age, but I don't know what the snowball means. But if they have a lot of debts and they set up a multiple payment plan simultaneously but can snowball the debts. You mean, I'm not sure what you're
So
asking, but are
Bonnie,
you mean
I'm
that they're
thinking they're paying a lot of money toward one particular debt and trying to pay that off first, then moving on to the next?
okay? The key is, have they reached out to the creditor to discuss it? Has the creditor worked with them? So it's not, again, it's not paying the debt, but what have they done to try to resolve it?
Then I'm also seeing a question if there's any difference in collection accounts versus charge off and how they are viewed.
They're viewed the same, because even though it says charged off and they're no longer responsible, technically, why did they let it get to charge off? We see collections, charge offs, bankruptcy, and all that in the same view. So the guideline says, are they able to pay it? Were they willing to pay it? What did they do to pay it? And so they're still delinquent. Either way, they still have to resolve it. They still have to show us what they've done to resolve it. I will get a lot of people that say, well, it's charged off, I'm not responsible for it anymore. But you got to keep in mind that they signed a contract stating they're going to make these payments, and they're not doing it. A debt validation letter often takes 30 days to get information back from a creditor. Is sending the debt validation request considered a valid act? Yes, it is. To resolve debt, yes, it is. And keep in mind, like Megan said, you also can ask for an extension as well. What about debt repayment plans set up by other agencies? It doesn't really matter where the debt repayment plan is coming from, as long as it's not through the mother. Another thing that I've seen is somebody borrows from mom to pay their debt, but they still owe their mom. So it's not really, it's what, robbing Peter to pay Paul? Did I miss any other questions? Thank you. Reference student loan debt. Individual has submitted a payment plan to creditors. Not sure what that means.
And there was a question asking if you would recommend service members inform commanders if they're facing financial difficulty.
Absolutely. And that's what Megan was saying. Absolutely. It's better for them. If you remember, the whole person concept was voluntary disclosure is mitigating. So, look at society, during COVID. A lot of people weren't working. Your hairdressers couldn't even work. So obviously that's beyond their control. So those are mitigating factors. They told their commander, hey, I'm having trouble, so forth. Their spouses, they've lost half of their income, right? So
I'm wondering about identity theft and if you ever see that as a result in the security alert.
yes, we actually see that a lot. And yes, that is mitigating. Also, remember that authorized card holder is not held against the individual because they're not responsible for the debt. We've seen a lot of that as well.
Is there any expedited process for identity theft cases? Or does it just
No, it just goes the same way. Everybody's allowed due process, and it's always a certain time frame they're allowed. They can respond in 2 days if they like, but they're only allowed up to 60 days to provide a response. Oh, thank you for snowball means paying smallest to largest. We've seen a lot of that. The importance of that, though, is to show where they've contacted the creditors. So if you keep in mind, yes, smallest to largest paying those, great. But somebody who has a really huge debt is more at risk of being of national security, of selling secrets or whatever, because they have such a high debt.
And is there any type of template that's available for responding to that financial statement of responsibility?
No, but here's how I recommend responding is address each item in the SOR. And when we have the template that we, or the table in there that has like creditor or JCPenney, have them answer each creditor that way. It makes it a lot easier for the adjudicator to determine which account they're referring to. We've received like bank statements where they've highlighted and they've handwritten what the debt is for. That's not really evidence from a creditor. That's just a handwritten, and anybody can just handwrite. Not saying their integrity is not there, but we can't use that as clear evidence.
Thank you. And I'm seeing a question from Cynthia about the amount of debt, high debt, what classifies it as high?
Okay, so there's an unofficial debt threshold of 10,000 or more. What is it for you for your hit, Megan?
We typically don't disclose the amount, but because it's all technically reportable due to the SF-86. If you have a question regarding thresholds, please reference the federal investigative standards or the expandable focused investigation criteria. According to the FIS, when you fill out that SF-86, any unpaid debt, any debt at all is technically reportable. So I tell everyone, report everything as it comes up, instead of letting it get to the point where everything adds up and you're 25 grand of unpaid debt.
Right, and if you're like 90 days past, that is definitely the time to report it, because you're pretty far behind. So, and even though there's like this unwritten threshold, that is not what adjudicating against the financial guideline is all about. Do they have an inability to pay? And is that inability to pay a risk? Do they have the ability, but they're not willing to pay? I mean, you see debt that's like $25 here, $25 there, and there's no reason why it can't be paid. So a lot of people focus on the number of debt and the amount of debt, but that's not what the adjudication is about. Good faith effort is the biggest thing that we're looking for. What were the circumstances that, occurred? If somebody's had a bankruptcy 7 years ago and now they have another bankruptcy, what's going on? And that's what we're looking for. What if small amounts but a lot of accounts? I think I just addressed that. If they have a whole bunch of, again, it's not about the amount. It's about the history. It's about, what is going on? Why are they not paying it? Why are they not sticking to their contract?
I know you've discussed the credit report, but does the credit score itself figure into
No.
that? Is that something that flags as well?
Well, not for us, but I don't know about Megan. Does the credit score hit?
No, it does not matter your credit score. All it matters is our credit reports. If you have any bankruptcies and any aggregated debt, like I said, it's a certain amount of. We're very generous with days past due, but it's also collections, repossessions. The credit score has no indication of anything for us. As long as you're paying your debts on time, and we're happy over here.
Thank you all for sharing such great information. We've had lots of great questions coming in through the chat. We've still got a few minutes left. If anybody else has a question, you're welcome to post it there.
We have somebody typing. Is there a negative or positive impact for someone who does not use credit now? I wish I didn't have credit. So, not at all. So I'll add this too, when we send the statement of reasons, we also share the exact guidelines, the disqualifying information, and the mitigating information with the individual to assist in providing their response. So it might be, and I could send this to you later, to have a copy of the financial guidelines so that you're aware. Just a thought. Oh, RSI, RFA. So this, I'll take a stab first, but these are terminology as in what we use to obtain information. So we obtain information from OPM or NBIS now. We've changed the name so many times. And by the way, we are now the DCSA adjudications. So the DoD CAF has evolved to yet another name. I'm not sure what other, I think, Megan, you used a lot of terminology.
Yeah, so the RFA and the RSI is what we request from the SMOs and DIS. And usually it's the SMOs and the components at all places. So RFA is request for action or request for acknowledgement, which is when we send that acknowledgement of receipt to the SMO, and then the report, the continuous vetting report, containing that reportable adverse information they need to action. And this is sent through DIS, and those are just the short abbreviations or acronyms for these actions we're performing in the Defense Information System for Security, which is DIS, which is used by all the SMOs for adjudications and reporting adverse information. The RSIs is, you would say, why am I drawing a blank here?
The what? What did you say? Which one?
RSI.
Reimbursable.
Yes.
Subject. Supplemental information. See, we don't even know what they stand for. We just know what they are.
Thank you. Yes. And that would be for like an investigation that someone's following out too. And these are actions just performed in the Defense Information System for Security. The SMO is the Security Management Officer or Office, which is who owns that individual and has jurisdiction over them when it comes to their security clearance. Hopefully that answered those questions.
Thank you both. Any last pieces of advice for our personal financial managers as they continue to work with service members and their families?
Only advice: if they don't understand what was provided, we won't understand what was provided. So, to make sure that responses are clear, and then report.
Yep. And then for the vetting risk operations, once again, RSI is reimbursable suitability investigation. So this is when the CAF requests an investigation based on adverse information. That could be due to adverse information reported for the incident report or through the information found through the continuous vetting program. The biggest thing with CV is please promote self-reporting. There will not be a report created by the continuous vetting program if the information was already known. And the CAF touched based on it. It's better to self-report. So please keep encouraging that. Even though the CV program is here, it's important to do that. And as always, provide that supporting documentation for any adverse information, and specifically for our financial assistance programs and for our financial counselors, please remember the following documents mentioned today, but also the why, the driving force of why the adverse information occurred. Why are they $100,000 in debt today? You know, are they going through a divorce? Also, you know, maybe the significant other lost their job 6 months due to COVID and couldn't go to work. These things matter. Not only that you're, you know, have a plan of action, but why? And is it likely to occur again?
Well, thank you both again for a wonderful webinar full of great information. So I will turn it back over to Selena to go ahead and wrap us up and talk about our upcoming webinar.
Thank you so much, both Bonnie and Megan, and to all of you who contributed to the conversation in the chat. I want to go ahead and invite you to our next event, Helping Military Consumers Avoid Scams and Navigate Finances. That webinar is July 13th and will equip participants with the skills to identify COVID and other imposter scams, as well as address the process for reporting fraud and consumer complaints through the Federal Trade Commission. If you would like to go ahead and RSVP for that event, I will share that link in the chat momentarily, and CEUs will be available for that webinar. If you are interested in CEUs, this session is approved for 1.5 CEU credits for AFCs, CPFCs, and CFLEs. We also offer a certificate of completion, so please click on the link for the evaluation on the event page through the purple continuing education button, at the end of which you'll choose the correct link for your accreditation. After completing the evaluation, you'll be directed to a 10-question post-test. Once you pass the post-test with 80% or higher, you'll receive a certificate of completion by email. If you have any questions, please email me at selenah@ufl.edu. And lastly, I invite you to subscribe to our monthly newsletter that comes out the first of each month. It shares upcoming webinars so that you can get those events on your calendar, as well as an article related to timely financial issues. And we would love for you to join us on Twitter at MFLNPF. So I will go ahead and post that link to the next webinar over in the chat in just a second, and then we will be all finished.
Thanks so much, Selena. Thanks again to our presenter team and our moderator, Marty Gillen, for a fantastic conversation and Q&A as well today. We will hang out here for just 1 or 2 more minutes in case you need to grab any last-minute links. Please be reminded, however, that all of the information for today's webinar, including the slides that we worked through today, and also all of the information regarding continuing education, are available on the event page, including Selena's contact information if you need to reach out for assistance. So thanks again so much for joining us. We hope you have a wonderful week, and we look forward to seeing y'all again soon. Take care and have a great day. All right, we're not seeing any additional conversation in the chat, so we're going to go ahead and close out our room for today. Again, thank you so much for joining us. If you have any follow-up questions that you think of after we close out, again, please reach out to Selena with the personal finance team and she'll be happy to assist. Take care, have a great day, and we'll see you again soon.